It's time for another episode of the Boneyard podcast. I'm Matt Mosley, Corey Campbell, head coach of the Lake Highlands Wildcats, with me. And Corey, this has been the nature of this season, back-to-back, unbelievable. I shouldn't say unbelievable. You all knew you could do it, but you take down Lake Highland, or you take down Highland Park, and then Jesuit, riding high. I'm sure. Coaches always worry. You'll be worried even heading into Thursday night's game. But this was, there was a lot swirling. You got homecoming. I was looking at players. I had to think. I thought about you at halftime because you're in there making adjustments, and your star running backs in the homecoming court, your snapper, others, your star cornerback. They're out there being celebrated, and you love some of that. But also, it just creates some interesting issues around the game. Just overall. That was a shootout, and much like a game earlier this season, it seemed like, on a turnover, it was almost kind of like if you could match them score for score, and maybe at some point stop them or get a turnover, it was okay. But then once there was that one turnover y'all had, it felt like a little bit of an avalanche at that point.
Sure. I think, as you talked about, to open district play to start 2-0 as a coach, I think, in the back of your mind, you're always fearful. Do you have your team ready? Is there too much positive, surrounding your team, if that's such a thing? And then, Friday night, I felt like, we just lacked in consistency in all three phases of the game. We have to learn to be more consistent, whether that's in a bigger approach, whether that's week to week or series to series or play to play. I just felt like we lacked consistency, and really the difference in the game is just our inability to stop the big play. They got in space on us. We knew they had great athletes. That wasn't a surprise. We just didn't play very well in space on Friday night, and that showed. But we got to, I wouldn't say go back to the drawing board. I think 5 games in, we have a lot better idea of who we are. But we've got to search for that consistency. We started game plan for Nimitz this morning. And we're going to get them on. We have a quick turnaround here on a Thursday night. We're going to go to their place. That's going to be our approach this week, is just searching for that consistency. As we go down the road, we still have a lot of football left to play, and this team's got to continue to get better, and definitely have a lot of room for that after Friday night's game. Yeah,
and tough on homecoming, tough against a rival like that. I mean, y'all have obviously dominated the rivalry, but we've talked about, sometimes we joke, they pay their players too, not at the high school level, but they do, they have amassed quite a bit of speed, and I am sort of curious, I think people would be interested, y'all have had a tremendous secondary. I think they were all the players of the game, basically, the DBs against Jesuit, made great plays in the end zone. Certainly at times have had sticky fingers in terms of, and had some opportunities the other night, in fact, when they closed on some balls and maybe could have taken it the other way. But an opportunistic defense is what I would generally call your DBs and your defense. In this, it's never as easy as, you want a better pass rush to take pressure off those guys. You want better coverage to help the pass rush. It maybe didn't work as well as it has in the past. But take us through some of those in-space plays. Number 6 was great for them. Number 14, I've had nightmares, as I'm sure you have, about some of those guys. Is that a technique thing? Part of it, to me, was my opinion was kind of like, it's hard to prepare. You can watch them on film, but it's a different level of speed you faced from the previous weeks. It was a step up, and so you almost have to recalibrate when you get out there. But some of those quick hitches, or whatever you want to call it, that turned into enormous plays. What was that? Just a tackling technique? What did you kind of see when you looked at the film and you and Anthony started going it over with your DBs on how better to prepare for that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think for us, going back and watching the tape, I mean, the pass rush was kind of negated because of how fast the ball was coming out. And then really it comes down to, we just needed to be better in space. And a lot of that is, we needed to be able to break down and make tackles, even though, they were first downs or whatever. We weren't able to stop the big play. And I think as you study the tape, in our secondary, they were able to make the big play. And that was the difference Friday night. I think they had, I go back and look, but it was 8 or more explosive plays that created where they don't have to drive the ball down the field. And if you're an offense and you don't have to have a lot of consistency, you really help all facets of the game. And we didn't make them drive the ball down the field. And give credit to those guys. You alluded to how athletic and how much speed they have, but I think we giving up the big play, the explosive play was the difference in the ball game.
Okay, and something I feel like you've had to try to keep a wrap on is some of the penalties this year, and a thing that if I know you and I knew and Lonnie is the same conversation I would have with Lonnie. I mean, it annoys you when it's like you want your guys to celebrate with each other and have that kind of passion. But there were a couple of instances the other night. Again, I don't know what the call was. Like, I don't even know if there's a rule against throwing the ball up into the student section. Okay, there was one where one of your players goes in and spikes the football. I'm pretty sure that's not allowed at the high school level. I mean, I don't think I have to read the rule book to know that. How do you handle it in the moment, and then kind of how do you handle it in the aftermath? Because again, those are exciting plays, but of course you got to, you're teaching these guys to try to handle that in the right way.
Yeah, I think for us, we had a team meeting this morning, and you go back and I think at first you show 17 and 18-year-old kids the consequences, and the consequences on both of those plays that you're alluding to were field position for our defense. And as a fan, sometimes you watch a game and you forget those little consequences. But for us, both of those drives after touchdowns allowed them to start at the 50-yard line. Well, that puts our defense in a huge hole, and especially against an explosive offense. And so as we met this morning in team meetings, we're trying to teach young men, and so we started with the consequence, and then I think in the end it's really about trying to control your emotions. There's 10,000 people in the stadium. You do something good, it can't be about you. Yes, there's a celebration that can take place that's appropriate, but in those two instances we let emotion get the best of us, those are great kids who made mistakes. Man, I love them. And I told them this morning, it's just something that we've got to learn from, and it cannot happen. And again, consequences where it really affected the amount of field that they had to drive. And then if you want to take it on the flip side of that, we started three drives that weren't fair caught on kickoffs. We started on our 12-yard line, averaging on our 12-yard line, and that when you look up in a game where there's a lot of points scored, you'd like to be on the end where you start at the 50 and not the 12. And so again, emotions to me are something that we've got to control. We've got to do a better job of. I've got to do a better job of coaching our kids, and we were able to look at that this morning, and I think they understand. In the grand scheme of things, again, the emotion, they're excited and all this stuff, but it's not an excuse. We've got to be better in that facet, and we tried to learn from that this morning.
In the kicking game, on those kickoffs, you're trying to, because at least for now, does it seem like you're getting a lot of touchbacks, and so
Sure.
You're trying to direct kick it in a sense, and honestly he's pretty good at it. Occasionally, of course, if the player allows it to happen, ball's going to go out of bounds.
Sure.
That's never fun, because what they get at the ball at the 35-yard line immediately is better than midfield. But what kind of goes into your decision? I'm not even talking about when you have to kick off from 15 yards back,
Sure.
which is a problem, obviously.
Sure.
But just I guess you just have to know your personnel. It's kind of like we talked a couple of weeks ago. All of a sudden, your punter against Jesuit, just punting had been a little bit of an issue, and he has this incredible game. Kickoff, I mean, I know you'd like to kick it deep every time, but it's just kind of, this is how you've had to choose to do it this year.
Yeah, I think for us, when we meet as a staff and we're talking special teams on the weekends, it's largely about, and you mentioned it, largely about personnel. Going back and watching the video, the Pierce game, Pierce, they onside it several times. One time they got it, other times they gave them great field position, but they did kick it deep once and it was returned for a touchdown. And so, I think when you study the tape and you study that personnel, those guys that we were alluding to a while ago that catch the ball in space, that had such explosive plays, those are the same guys that are returning the football.
Yeah.
So you get in that age old, in practice, we're monitoring all of our kicks. Consistently, can we kick the ball out of the end zone for a touchback? And if we can, then we would definitely kick it deep. If we feel like consistently, we cannot make a touchback, then it gets into a little bit more schematically of pooch kicking and kicking the ball to the sidelines and stuff like that to try and negate some of that return. And so I would say definitely that the number one reason is about personnel.
Yeah, that makes total sense against the speed y'all were facing. You get that game to 28-27, you get the lead with 9.5 minutes left in the third quarter, and that thing starts to turn into a seesaw battle. They score, go back up, you come rolling back down the field, and I got to say, because of course sometimes we mention him, and it's like, oh, this, your man Tamar has just continued to step up, and he's had like some huge catches in that game. I think we're seeing what y'all saw him probably in the offseason. He's starting to make some big plays for you in the passing game. In this instance, they made a great hit on him. Ball pops out, and that was a tough. We had that one moment where another game that y'all lost kind of turned on something. But I guess that's just another opportunity. And by the way, later in the game, maybe it was a little out of hand, but your guys were still playing hard. And you made an incredible hit on a guy, and sadly he got hurt. But that was a fumble, at least from what I could tell. It was a good clean hit, and the guy fumbled. But anyway, on your end of things, that was a tough, not to get too far into that specific player, but an overall tough moment in the game, because at that point it was kind of a track meet. We match your score. And y'all had really gotten in a big-time rhythm with your offense, hadn't you?
Yeah, I think, when we go back and we talk about, us having, multiple, I think we had 3 drives that were 10 plays or more that resulted in touchdowns. When you go back and look at their drives, when it's, 3 plays or less and touchdown, it doesn't break your will, but it takes something out of you. And then when you add a turnover to that, because it was a 30-yard gain, a little quick slant to the boundary, and we felt like that momentum was back and forth, and then when you have that turnover, it was tough for our kids. To bounce back after that turnover, and again, that's just something that we got to continue to work on. In big games, you can't turn the ball over. I don't care at what level you're playing. If you're the Cowboys on Sunday, or if you're a Pee Wee game on Monday afternoon, you can't turn the ball over in this game, and that was a huge turning point. But give Tamir a lot of credit, man. He's been working his craft, and I definitely think he's gotten better and better. We talked about it this weekend as a staff, and it just gives us another option in the passing game.
Yeah, I very impressed, and y'all continue to kind of work some receivers in. I'm always hesitant to even mention Myron, because I know y'all like him to be an element of surprise when he comes onto the field, but makes another huge play in the passing game, and what a player he is. Wanted to give you an opportunity to. And we'll get to our unsung hero of the week. But as you look at film after these games, there may be people that stand out to you, whether it be the O-line, D-line, linebacker, anybody that kind of comes to mind that you felt like, hey, this was at least a positive that came out of this game. I want to give you an opportunity to highlight anybody.
Yeah, I think our D line at times I felt like played pretty well as a unit. It's so difficult when you go back and you look at all the explosive plays, but I felt like at times they played well as a unit. And then offensively, I felt like Harrison, Leland, at times played well. It just when it's a game like that, when you look back on it, it's just it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, and so it's hard to point out one specific player. But I did feel like the D line and some of our receivers played really well, and it's our O line didn't play terrible, but when you play against a team, they really loaded the box at times. We got to do a better job on some of our RPO game when that box is loaded, getting the ball out, and that's something that we're going to work on going forward as well.
All right, and now for the unsung player of the week, or sometimes it's unsung personnel of the week in terms of some of the people that are involved in your program. Who do you have for us this week?
Yeah, I've been wanting to highlight this guy for a long time. He's a guy that doesn't want any accolades, kind of wants to stay in the background, maybe the hardest worker in this entire building. But our unsung hero this week is Coach Judd Smith. He's our strength and conditioning coordinator, former defensive coordinator here at Lake Highlands, was an unbelievable football coach, has a passion for young people, and kind of watching them change their speed, change their weight room habits, change their body. And man, he loves kids, and he's I think we have 17 different programs in athletics here at Lake Highlands, and he works with them all. He treats them all just like they're the most important sport in the building, and he's super wicked smart. He played football. He's a defensive tackle. You could talk to him sometimes about the stories and the guys he played against, Orlando Pace and Drew Brees and Tom Brady, and he played defensive tackle at Rice. And man, he's one of my best friends, and we're super fortunate to have him here.
Yep.
I don't think people always realize, when the football team runs out there, there's a lot of work that's went in behind the scenes, whether it's in the summer, or in the off season or the spring or what it is. And he's a huge part of the success here at Lake Highlands High School in all sports.
Judge Smith, I see him in there. He's the one guy. The rest of y'all are trying to look for barbecue and tacos and burgers. Judge kind of made himself something, and something that's probably pretty good for him. Maybe having a salad or something like that. Judge Smith, I know you and I, Rice was our backup school for both of us, and so it's good to see a Rice Owl, former defensive tackle. Judge Smith is our unsung award winner, and he's a good guy. Yeah, I'm glad that is. I get to see him occasionally, and does a great job. And that's cool to hear all the different programs, because you football coaches and you're the AD, so you have to look out for all these programs, but you all want them a lot of times working with those football players, to see them kind of get out. And I'm sure he has other people that work that he kind of has to assign things and delegate, but that's really cool. And by the way, it's brought to you, one of our new sponsors at Lawyers Title, Joe Terrio, and boy, the family, he's got lawyers in the family. He's got unbelievable marketing geniuses in that family. In fact, GP, his brother, is a longtime friend of mine. But it's Lawyers Title, and the closest location, and boy, they can help you out on a refi. It's a title company, but they can do so much for you. And they call it Lawyers Title because he's got lawyers in the family. His sister, the whole group is involved in this. Boy, Joe's got all sorts of degrees himself. The website is dfw.ltic.com. That's dfw.ltic.com. The Lakewood office number is 214-459-0222. Corey, we've been shopping for homes for you. Want to get you even a little closer to the action. So you would definitely want to go to Lawyers Title to get everything and to get the title done on your new home. And by the way, kind of a nice little connection here. The Terrios support all the athletic teams at Lake Highlands. Christopher Terrio, a listener of the Boneyard podcast, a freshman for you, doing a nice job.
Yeah, it's fun to associate the sponsor. Obviously, having a freshman son playing on the football team, and that freshman group down there is doing a great job. Super proud of those guys, and the future is going to be good. Man, some great football players, great kids, and we're really excited about that bunch.
All right, I happened to see one of the fathers of that team may have passed along a video of an 85-yard little wheel route that took, kind of a house call. I think Shaw found one of those receivers, and wow, that was nice to see. It's good to see some of those sub-varsity teams having some success.
Yeah, they're doing great, man. Super proud of them, and super excited about their future. But those guys getting to spend an off season with Coach Judd Smith down in there in that off season and changing those guys as well. So
yeah,
super excited about that group.
I could have used Judd back in the day myself. Our weight room was a little shaky there at Kaufman High School. All right. And we got to move on to the Thursday night. I mean, this is we're taping this Monday. We got a Thursday night game over at Irving Nimitz. They're struggling a little bit, 0-3 out of the chute. But these Irving schools, I mean, they obviously have some athletic players and do some things. And to me, Corey, I don't know what you're focusing on with your players, but it's kind of like in these kind of games with a team that's struggling as much as they have, it's kind of like we got to play to our standard. We got to get back to, okay, this is who we are, and you certainly respect your opponent, but it's about, kind of making sure you get back on a roll and do all the things you need to do.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, obviously, last Friday night, it stung. Don't get me wrong, but just like when you have big wins, I think as a coach, my approach is, we've got to be able to turn the page. And then, ultimately, we sat down Saturday morning and started getting ready for Irving Nimitz. It's going to be a challenge. We are going to see a different front defensively for the first time since Capel. So that's going to be a challenge mentally, just getting those reps on a short week. And preparing for a four-man front instead of a three-man front, so that's going to be different. And then defensively for us, they're gonna challenge us with a ton of different sets, a ton of different motions, a ton of different bumps. And so on a short week, we've got to be dialed in. But ultimately, I think you said it. We've got to get back to playing our brand of football. We got to be us. We got to make sure we know who we are and our identity. And going forward, like I mentioned a while ago, there's still a lot of football season left, regardless of our record now or our record in week 8. We feel like we still have a lot of football to play, and so we got to continue to get better and better every day. And starting on Monday, today is going to be our our install day. We installed the game plan this morning in the classroom and in videos, and we're going to go out this afternoon and have a great practice and get that game plan ready, because it does affect your schedule a little bit, because Tuesdays usually are a really, really heavy day when you play on Friday. And so now when you play on Thursday, you feel like Monday can't be your heavy day because you got a lot of teaching and stuff. And so you kind of got to incorporate a combination of, your heavy day on Tuesday. You may only do it for so long instead of the entire practice. And so unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, we have multiple Thursday games back to back, and so you kind of got to flip the script a little bit. You got to go to those Thursday itineraries and Thursday game plans, and then how does it affect the next week? And we got a good plan, and we're going to be ready to go on Thursday.
Well, thank you. By the way, you have not let it impact our broadcast schedule, and we appreciate that at Frito Nation Productions. Let's go to the historical look at Nimitz, and the overall Wildcats hold a 5-1 advantage in head-to-head matchups. 1-1 in non-district, 1-0 in the playoffs, and 3-0 since the Cats and Vikings have shared a district. And it's always interesting, Corey. You love the history of Texas high school football, so you know these names. Coach Safuto, the legendary Lake Highlands coach, came into like that 94 season, I think it was, top 10, Class 5A, but it is a team that loved to run the ball. 4 fumbles in a season opening game at the Cotton Bowl against Irving Nimitz back in September 2nd, 1994. I wish Glenn Gann, our historian, would not provide some of these negative headlines, but this is where it started. Coach Mike Farda. And then there was a Coach Bennett, wasn't it, over at one of the other Irving schools, Phil Bennett's brother, I always would hear about for many, many years. He would call the shots at Nimitz for 27 seasons. Can you give us 27, Corey? We'll get through season 1 here. And the 95 squad would be one of his best, going 10-2 with a district championship. Even that year, they took down the mighty Wildcats with Dexter Ford, Stiggers. We still see those guys around, especially Marcus, who works with a few of your players these days. And the Cats lost 25-16, but they would take those lessons and finish 11-3 with a state quarterfinal appearance that season. So 3 losses, by the way, that season when they went very deep in the playoffs and had a great season, sure. Which to me reminds us all everything's still out in front of you guys. And while that was a tough loss, what are you, 2-1 now in district? You can't worry about Berkner anymore. I mean, we'll see what they do. We'll see if they can run the table. But if you run the table, I think you've got a great shot at a district title, and it starts on Thursday evening.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think going forward, we've talked a lot about our district being front loaded, good, bad, or indifferent. And you mentioned it a while ago. Coming off a loss like this, I think we got to go back and remind ourselves what got us to this point, and we've got to use that, and we will going forward. Thursday is going to be a quick turnaround, but we'll be ready.
All right. I liked your words, by the way, at the pep rally. I mean, it's. I don't know. I don't know if it was a Baptist pastor. I don't know what I was feeling, but I kind of, the mic was doing something to you. You didn't enjoy that, but then you kind of started, and it was, you were starting to kind of have some soaring oratory there. So you're pretty good at that. I mean, sometimes coaches have to grow into that deal, but you seem pretty comfortable in front of a full gym.
Yeah, I think you got to be careful about making sure you're not, it's not just the football team you're talking to. That would be the only thing that I probably need to remind myself. You talk to the football team every day, it's one thing. When you get in that gym and there's however many thousand people, couple thousand people, or whatever's in there, I don't know.
Yeah.
The audience is a little different, and so you got to make sure you understand your audience. But they might not want me to talk in those pep rallies anymore. I don't know.
No, I liked it. In fact, I kind of was like, oh, don't end this. I thought you had. I was kind of like, well, I want to see where this is going a little bit. And the 1963 team there at the pep rally, honored before the game. That was very cool. And congratulations, by the way, to our the homecoming court. I think one of your players, Myron, was named Homecoming King. And my daughter was just telling me, and I wish I had her name, Homecoming Queen, I think is also a student athlete, maybe on the basketball team. And I had the name, and I don't have it now. But pretty cool to see a couple of athletes at Lake Highlands crown that. And anyway, but from now on, Corey, we'll try to let your players be in the locker room, especially if y'all are down at halftime, right?
Yeah, I think as a coach, it's not maybe more information than everyone needs to know. I don't always get a choice in what games are they're using for elementary night or junior high night or homecoming and things like that. And I think as a coach, you kind of compartmentalize distractions, and whether they are or they're not, to 17-year-old kids. I think as an old man like me, you feel like that the least amount of distractions possible is the best, and no excuses, but going forward, hopefully, we've got homecoming behind us, and some of those distractions become less, and we'll be better for it.
All right, and Wildcats 7 o'clock Irving, Nimitz will all be making a trip over there, and we'll get back on their winning ways and go after this district title, and then it'll be playoffs. And but again, Corey's only thinking about Thursday. He lets me think about all this other stuff. Thank you, Boneyard Podcast, Lawyer's Title. If you want to be a sponsor, we've got some great sponsors. But in fact, one of our new restaurants in town, Lake Highlands Cafe, over there near the Super Target at Abrams and Skillman, came up to me and said, because I've been going in there, Baggett and I like to go in there quite a bit, and said, and in fact, Mark Friedman was with me, and they're interested in the podcast, love Lake Highlands already, so that was kind of fun. So people are getting involved. In fact, I'm trying to think, what did I have that day? I think I had half a Frito sandwich and then mine. Yeah, it was quite a day. Perhaps some pastrami. Though the Reuben sandwich, excellent over there, and they make a great BLT as well. All right, Corey's wanting me to land this at some point. That is the Boneyard Podcast. We will see you next Monday evening. Good night, everybody.